Welcome to Conveyancing Matters with Lorraine and Stu. Join us for a chat about all things property.
So, hi Lorraine. We've just been talking about prop tech, and all of a sudden we started to reminisce about the old days. So the old
Yeah,
days were longer for some, but yeah, we've just been talking about some of the things that we used to do, and we thought maybe we should record it because I don't think some people will believe us, do you?
no, absolutely not. All the young people. Can I just say, Stu, I've only just noticed you've put your lovely branded top on, but there is a bit of a vampire vibe about the neck, mate.
I know it's a
You've
bit
got
big, this
like,
neck, isn't it? I know it's
yeah, it's a
cold.
bit. You
Can't
need to
just put
pull
the
it in a
heating
bit.
on. Yeah, sorry.
That's better. There's a bit less vampire Dracula vibe going on
Okay,
now.
sorry about that. I do apologise.
Oh, that's quite all right. It looked lovely. Yeah, so how conveyancing used to be before email, before the interweb, and all of those things, we used to rely on paper quite a lot. We've talked about that. As you say, we've talked about prop tech. So come on, Stu, you start, because I'm older than you, as we well know. So, so you start, mate. Come on.
I
Give
think
us
my favourite sort of stories, and the thing I used to like the best was on completion day, which almost always was a Friday, sort of back in the late 90s when I started. I used to sort of, have a look at the files, all files obviously, have a look what money I was expecting in from what bank. So I might have, 100,000 from one bank and 200,000 from another. So add it all up, a little bit of paper. So walk down there, walk into the bank, speak to the bank manager. He said, go into his office and he'd say, hi, Stu, how many completions you got today with us? I'd say, oh, 3 or 4 or whatever. He said, how much do you need? I'd say, 800 and, 70 odd thousand. He'd write a check out. I'd take the check from him. I'd go to the next bank. I'd say, I need £1 million from you. He'd give me the £1 million, just simply writing out a check. Barely check any, but he wouldn't even ask me that many details. I'll be like, it's on the file of Smith. Need a,
yeah.
800 on you. He'd write out checks. I'd stuff them in my grabby pocket, walk across the town centre into our bank, pay them in, walk upstairs, back into the office, and we used to sort of jump on the chaps machine and send out the money. So, yeah, we used to walk into the banks and collect checks from the bank manager.
And speak to people. Well, actually, that
Yeah.
reminds me, Stu, a long time ago, actually, when I was teaching full time, but I still used to locum. I was locuming in a Norfolk town in the middle of nowhere, and anybody that lives there will know where they are because it's just not near anywhere. So I turned up on the first morning, and it's fair to say the person I covered for wasn't perhaps as diligent as they might have been. And of course, the very first thing you always do on that morning is find out what completions you've got. And I opened the diary, nothing. I thought, great. Anyway, about mid-morning, I got a phone call from a lady on the other side, very, very nice. And she said, about this completion we've got. I thought, I said, when is it? She said, today. And we were purchasing, and I was acting for a Norfolk turf farmer who was buying land for development. So it was really important to him because he stood to make quite a lot of money from the sales off. So the purchase for him was really important. And of course, nothing in the diary, absolutely nothing, no money in, nothing. And it was a purchase. And so I said, leave it with me, I'll ring you back. Anyway, of course, looked at the file, got no money, nothing. So I rang her back. I said, look, I'm really sorry, but I don't think we're going to be able to do it today. I think you're going to have to serve me a notice to complete. And, I'll sort it out in the next few days for you. She said, Lorraine, I'm really sorry. She said, we served the notice to complete 10 days ago. And if you don't complete today, my clients have instructed me that they're going to rescind the contract. So, oh, God. So I phoned this Norfolk turf farmer and I said to him, well, we've got this purchase. It's completing today. I need, I don't know, about 700 grand or something, sort of today. Can you sort it out? Because, of course, the morning had slipped away by then. And, of course, for the young people watching Stu, they won't remember that, we used to have to get, banking sorted by about 2 p.m. in those days. So anyway, miraculously, he went into Barclays in this town in the middle of nowhere. And miraculously, about 20 minutes later, with no mortgage offer, no signature of a legal charge, nothing, just miraculously 700 grand appeared from Barclays into the client's bank, into our client account. And we, of course, were able to complete. But I did say to him subsequently, I said, look, how on earth did you manage to go into Barclays in the middle of nowhere and get 700 grand like there and then with no documentation? And he turned around and he said, well, Lorraine, he said, I got to be honest. He said, I don't think I'd have got it if my bank manager had actually been there. So I don't know what on earth he said. But then a few days later, he came in and he was so pleased that this purchase completed. And his big fat hands, he'd got all these bottles of champagne kind of clinking. And he came in, and there was a real sort of Bernard Matthews vibe about it, because he was so pleased about this completion. And frankly, of course, I'd done absolutely nothing. And he came in, and his legendary line, because I hadn't obviously met him at that point, and he put all this champagne on the table, and he said, I'd just like to say you're as beautiful in the flesh as you are on the phone. So that was kind of one of mine, just this kind of just getting money out of nowhere from a provincial bank, a high street bank, was just, you'd never do it now. Did you have clients, Stu, that would just like turn up with a big bunch of cash? We'd have clients that would just turn up with 10 grand in a Tesco bag, and we just pay.
That wouldn't be unusual. That wouldn't be unusual for people to turn up massive amounts of cash. We would take that, and to some of the younger guys out there, could you ever imagine this well, that we didn't used to ever check anybody's ID? Money laundering, we didn't even know what that was back in those days. We didn't check any source of funds, nothing like that was of any concern. We used to see most clients, if not all the clients, in the flesh. We might hold a photocopy of their passport at best. It's an incredible sort of change over the last 20 odd years.
I'm not sure that there was more money laundering and fraud going on then than there is now. I think is probably the truth of the matter. I think the reality is we just knew our clients.
Oh, definitely. I mean, when we talk about things, now like profiling your client, you didn't act for anywhere near as many clients back then, and they would probably pop into the office not just once, but on 2 or 3 occasions. Every time a document needed, to be signed, they would come in the office and sign it. So they might sign the contract, a transfer, a mortgage deed. There could be 3 separate visits to the office. But we barely recorded any advice we gave them. It was all verbal. Yeah. It's an incredible age when you think, incredible era when you look back.
Now come on, Stu, for people watching now who are going to be shocked by this, but did you have clients that, for example, made appointments to come in?
Would you believe it? They made appointments, and sometimes they made appointments in advance. They didn't actually want to. No, honestly, sometimes they would make an appointment, say on a Monday, to see you the next week. It was incredible. It was. Yeah, it really was. They made appointments to come into the office. They would. I mean, you've got to bear in mind, there's no. I don't think it was even like Google. There was no search engines or anything like that. So what you told them was gospel. And they did treat the lawyer with potentially more respect than maybe you get now. But it was an incredible, when I look back now, to think how much things have changed. Not just the process, but we must do now double the amount of work per file at least, compared to what we did 20 years ago.
And interestingly, probably double the amount of work for significantly less profit.
Oh,
I would
massively.
say.
Massively so. Massively so. And not just only was there less work per file, but you had more time to do it. You weren't as responsive. There weren't emails. I do remember I trialed a BlackBerry for the law firm that I was previously, and they said, "Oh, this might be something that might cotton on." And I was thinking, emails on your phone? Are you serious? Emails on your phone for? It's ridiculous. As if that'll ever take off.
Well, I used to. It was like a mate of mine actually years ago who, when Madonna's Like a Virgin first came out, he said, "Oh God," he said, "she's crap. She'll never go anywhere." Similar prediction, really, Stu. I would venture to suggest.
Very similar.
But my arrangements for the completion day, and again, people watching this, particularly lovely young people, they just will think this is just bizarre, because clearly, the only means of communication you'd have with your client would obviously be by their phone, by their landline, which was usually cut off on the morning of completion. So I would always have this arrangement with my clients, and I would say to them, look, if I haven't phoned you by 11 a.m. on the morning of completion with an update or whatever, please check that if your phone's been switched off, go to your neighbour's house and ring me, because otherwise I can't get hold of you to tell you that completion has happened.
Yeah. We used to have people who used to come into the office, they'd wait in reception purely for you to tell them, yeah, the money's gone through, because they didn't have access to a phone.
Yeah.
You know, I can remember ringing phone boxes and things like that, and all sorts of weird things. But there was, you know, you've got to bear in mind, you had no ID, you had no money laundering, no emails, no texts, you know, no texts, obviously no WhatsApps, no internet. You know, your day was spent literally either on the phone or looking at paper. And even then, the paper, it isn't as we know it now. It's about twice as thick, thick cotton paper.
Yeah. Real proper engrossment. Well,
That's
again,
it.
something that people won't believe when you say paper, Stu, is that they used to be called office copies. Now, if anybody in your firm is still using the phrase office copies, they are out of date now. We haven't used the phrase office copies since 2003. Take it from mummy. But to get a set of office copies, as they were, a copy of the register, we would have to, and the same as getting a 94A search, which of course was the forerunner to our OS1, and our 94B was our OS2. We would have to, now wait for it children, fill in a form, type up a form.
By hand? How? I used to handwrite them.
No. I would have other people that would do it. Sometimes I'd handwrite them. Then you'd requisition a cheque from accounts, wouldn't you? Then you would get it, obviously, then you would send it off in the envelope with the window, because that's where the land registry's address was, with the cheque stapled to the form. You would send it in the post or in the DX to the land registry, who would then produce your, run off a photocopy of your register of title, or would run your 94A search result, and then they would put it back in an envelope and send it back to you. And that whole process to get a set of official copies, as we now know them, of course, or an OS1 search result, could take a week or more.
Yeah.
If you think about it, could easily take a week, couldn't it?
Yeah, and that's why. Yeah, that's why I don't think we back in those days, didn't really have many completions that would be, within a week. I think, before my time, it was always 28 days in between exchange and completion. But even sort of in the late 90s, it was at least 2 weeks people used to set in between. So you had a lot more time to, again, send reports on titling. They were going by post. Everything was postal based. So, a totally different way of carrying out conveyancing. Go
on, Stu, tell us about the seals as well.
Yeah, so some people, I've heard people talk about what the wax seals are on some of the old documents, and this is prior to sort of all the SDLT submissions and the electronic ways we do it now. We used to literally have the signed TR1. So if you're acting for a buyer, you'd wait till it comes in by post from the seller's lawyer. Once you've got that, you would then send it to the Inland Revenue with your stamp duty payments. And they would literally stamp it with a wax seal. When you got it back, that's when you then sent it to the Land Registry. And the wax seal that was on the transfer document indicated that the stamp duty had been paid. That was the way we used to deal with that entity. So
yeah, and your PD stamp. And if you hadn't got your PD stamp and your stamp duty paid, then interest penalties, and it wouldn't be accepted by the Land Registry. I think it was, interestingly, I don't think it was any sort of worse way of dealing with things than we do now. It didn't feel as pressured.
No, I didn't feel it.
We used to go, and we used to be able to do personal exchanges, because I would always go and do a personal exchange with, usually with my friends, because I had them, who working in other firms, and you'd usually use it as a bit of an excuse. If you did it around lunchtime, you could use it as an excuse to pop to the pub. And my advice to private client lawyers, even today, in terms of appointment times, is if you're going to go and see an elderly widow, well, that's my daughter in the background there. Well, you might as well wave now, Gabriella, because we all know you're here. So we're actually having a chat. That everyone is Gabriella. Right, you can go now. Stu and I are recording. It's okay. We'll have a chat this one. So so bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Just as well
Be
we
a future guest.
Oh yes, you could she? Dog. She'd bring the dog. Anyway, where was I before I was rudely interrupted? So the best time of day to go and see an elderly widow, and I stand by this advice even today, go at about 3 PM because you'll probably get cake.
Yeah,
So,
good point.
Exchange at lunchtime and see an elderly widow at 3 PM and get cake. Oh look, and here's the dog. So this really is going to be an informal one. Okay, so here's the puppy dog. So here we go, Stu.
Ah.
This is Echo, and this is Gabriella. So there we
Happy
go.
X-ray.
Hello, Papa. Oh, hello.
Kisses.
So what other? How did conveyancing used to be?
Just so different. I mean, I can remember exchanging contracts, and most of the time, you've got to bear in mind that again, 20 odd years, more than that ago, a lot of the clients we used to deal with were in the surrounding area, certainly surrounding county. And again, the law firms that you used to deal with were predominantly in the same town. So, it wouldn't be unusual that all the property lawyers, and I mean virtually all the property lawyers, if you couldn't get hold of them, you had a good idea where they might be. Funnily enough, the pub, we talk about hot desking now and pubs and stuff like that. Well, I think, back when I was a lot younger, I think we're ahead of our time because we used to enjoy the hot desking in the pub and the hubs that we used to set up there, the office hubs, because you could have a few pints and nip back to the office in the afternoon. I think some of them might have took that a bit too far as well and had one too many. Well,
I used to locum for a guy, and some days, Stu, this is absolutely true. He, his sort of like window of opportunity would be he would perhaps like roll into the office about 10, and his long-suffering, marvelous secretary who just used to hold the entire department together was just extraordinary. Bless her, she only passed away a couple of years ago, and she literally worked for him from the age of 16 to when she retired. He spent more time in his life with her than he did his wife, without any shadow of a doubt. But he would rock up about 10:30. He'd be at the Rotary Club or the Con Club. He would be down the Con Club by, I don't know, about 12:30. And he'd just say, Edith, take the calls, take the calls. And if he even came back, he would just come back absolutely reeking at about 4:30, if he even came back. But to be quite honest, and I'm slightly embarrassed to say this, but most of his clients thought he was the best thing since shark repellent. They loved him. They absolutely loved him. Now, he probably wasn't competent, I'm sure, so I'm not advocating it, but it was a completely different era.
Something else that's totally different as well. You've got to bear in mind, we were barely using computers as well. So as a fee earner, a case handler, a property lawyer, you wouldn't necessarily be typing. Everything you did, you'd be speaking into a dictaphone. On the file of Lorraine, can you please do a letter? Dear Lorraine. And, you'd spell everything out.
Dimmers Richardson.
That's it. Dimmers Richardson. RE your purchase. I write further to my letter dated yesterday. It was very much like that, wasn't it? So totally different. You wouldn't be typing. You wouldn't, I'm just
full stop, new line.
Yeah,
new line.
Yeah, that's it. Full stop, new paragraph. I think the first desk I had in the first office I had didn't have a computer screen. So there was no screen.
I've got to say this, Stu, that does sound like we could immediately go into the 4 Yorkshiremen. Oh, you had a desk. Oh, a desk. You were lucky. I didn't have a desk. I used to have a hole in middle of office. I love that. Stop, full stop, new paragraph. I do have, probably to end this revelatory conveyancing chat, Stu, where we have been photo bombed by the dog of my daughter, for which many apologies. But I knew it would happen. Just thankfully, it's this one. I am absolutely a product of my era, and I do try very hard to not to be. But because I'm of the generation that didn't kind of type, I'm rubbish at typing, so I do still use voice dictation. I don't now have to say, full stop, new paragraph, re the matter of, because I'm dictating for myself and it does just produce me a document. So there's no secretarial intermediary anymore, but I do still have to use my voice dictation just because my typing's so bad, because I never learned how to do it.
Well, just to finish this episode of Conveyancing Matters, we've been thinking about doing a Conveyancing 101, haven't we? Well, yeah. I've got the ultimate 101, the ultimate disaster, the ultimate most annoying thing that could ever happen. And that was when you were dictating, firing away, because bear in mind, these are little cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've been going now, you're in full flow, full throttle,
I know where you're going with this.
Strutting your stuff, your prowess, and this mega complicated thing, thinking you've mastered the universe, to realise that the tape has chewed itself up and none of the recordings come out, and you've got to do the whole thing again. It was like, oh my God, throw the thing at the wall. Oh dear.
Never as good the second time round, which is why, oh, my hair's gone funny, look. Which is why we all need a David. I had our brilliant operations manager at the place I used to work. Was a fantastic guy called David, and he would just sort everything. And I called him once. I said, David, dictaphone's broken. And he came up and I gave it to him in a bag, and it was in about 25 bits. And he just very quietly looked in the bag. He said, Lorraine, what happened? I said, oh, He said, it wasn't dropped, was it? I said, no. He said, you threw it, didn't you? I said, oh, yes. But bless him, by the end of the day, new dictaphone, sorted on the desk in its little bag. And because that was still in the days when pinching a bit of stationery was de rigueur, wasn't it? If you could get home like with a highlighter and a rubber, that was just, you'd done it. That was, you'd sorted for the week in terms of office pinnacles. So to actually be able to open the new dictaphone box was just, it was like Christmas, really. I can see these topics cropping up again, Stu. I can see us, I think conveyancing in the old days is got to be a feature, hasn't it? So
yeah,
I think
just to finish it off and leave everybody with a thought, one last thought though, did it take any longer?
No, absolutely not. No. Was it less stressful? Yes.
Yes.
Was it perhaps generally more enjoyable? Yes. Could you incorporate the pub and rioja into your daily work life? Yes.
Yes.
Was it more profitable?
Less complaints, possibly.
Far fewer complaints, probably none.
Yeah.
Was it more profitable? Yes.
Yes.
So why are we doing it the way we're doing it again?
Sure.
Remind me why progress.
Yeah, maybe we need to visit that prop tech one once more. I think
we do, don't we? I think we need to press delete. That needs to be the Conveyancing Matters equivalent of the chewed up tape, doesn't it?
Definitely. I don't know.
On that thought. I shall. Bye-bye. Take care.
See you soon. Bye.